Before we answer this particular question, I think it's important to say that friends are good. We all have them, and I would say to some extent, obviously within context, we need them as well, because we've been created not to be on our own. We aren't meant to be islands existing just as individuals, but we're actually meant to interact with other people. I think we can have different levels of friends. For example, some folks have one very close friend that they share everything with. Others have a circle of close friends that they share their innermost thoughts with. Other people may not have a particular close friend, but they have lots of friends that would be on the periphery, so to speak. And of course, in this day and age of the internet, we can all have Facebook, Twitter, forum friends that we may never meet. I'm in that particular category. I've got lots of people that I connect with on a regular basis on the internet that I will probably never meet in my lifetime, but I consider them to be friends. So I think friends are important because we interact with people, and it's good to do that. It prevents us from becoming lonely. It's good to connect with other folks and to talk, particularly when we have a common interest. I'm into my fishing, so the vast majority of people that I connect with on the internet through forums and social media are through fishing. And so that's my sort of thing there. You may have a different hobby or a different interest. And of course, as a Christian, we connect with Christian people as well. And we get to build friendships and relationships that way. So I think it's good to have friends, whether we have the close ones or we have the general ones or we have a mixture of both. There's no right or wrong. It really is down to us as to the sort of depth of relationships that we take with people. But to answer the actual question now, what does God think of non-Christian friends? Well, I don't think there's a problem with that. I think that some Christians do become very insular, and you can take Facebook as an example. They will only add Christian people on there, and all their posts are Christian texts and verses and things about church and that sort of thing. And I'm not being critical at all, but if we are ever to reach people for the Lord, then we must move beyond our own little close circle of friends. So therefore, we have to have friends beyond the folks in our church. So I think it's important to move beyond that. I think also, as well, it's important to say, and being honest, that I know people in church who go to church who I wouldn't want as a friend, but I also know folks who only set foot in a church for a wedding or a funeral, and I consider them to be good people. Now, we're not talking about salvation and our position before God. I'm talking about general character. So I would want to be their friend, and I am their friend. But there are some folks that I know in church over the years, I'm not talking about my own particular church, I'm talking generally over the years, that I wouldn't really want to get very close to. So it is too simplistic to say that we only have Christian friends because Christian friends are full of integrity just because they go to church. On the other hand, because someone doesn't go to church, he can't be a good person. That's too simplistic, and it's not true. So friends are people that we gravitate towards. It's like our family is chosen for us, but we choose our friends. There's something about a person that we enjoy their company, whether in real life or on the internet. There's just something about that person that we enjoy chatting to. And that person can be a Christian or a non-Christian. And I don't think that God has an issue, or God doesn't have an issue with that, because how are we to reach people with the gospel unless we connect with them? I think we do have to be careful about our friends, the ones that we choose, because there's a verse in Corinthians that tells us that bad company corrupts good character. Now that applies whether we're a Christian, an atheist, a Muslim, a Sikh, a Hindu, or whatever. the people that we choose to be our friends, we have to be careful the amount of influence that we allow into our lives. So if we believe in certain things and we have friends who believe the total opposite, it doesn't mean to say that they shouldn't be our friends. It doesn't mean to say that we ignore them because they have a different belief to us, and maybe our faith, we can bring that into it now. We're Christians, they aren't. They don't believe in God. They have totally different views to us. We can still be friends, but we have to be guarded and careful as to how much of that influence we allow into our lives, because persistent digging away at the foundations of our faith in our lives can sometimes have very negative consequences. So we have to be careful. But as I say, that applies to all of us, whether we are believers or not, whether we follow the Christian faith or we're religious in some other aspect. We have to be careful as to the people we choose to be our friends. And that's why, of course, there are different levels of friends, as I've already said. The very close ones, whose character and integrity and honesty we trust. Or there are those folks perhaps on the periphery that we've never met. We never will, but we have a common interest. It might be our hobby, our pastime, and we talk to them about that. We don't really know much about their lives. They don't perhaps know much about ours, but we consider them to be friends. There are different levels of friendship. So the implications, back to the question that was asked, what are the implications of a Christian having a non-Christian friend? Well, we just have to be careful. But, and to stress that applies to all friendships. It applies even if you have a friend in church. You have to be careful, because you have to be careful who you can trust. A lot of folks, you tell them something, and before you know it, you may well have stuck it on an advertising board, because everyone knows what you told them in confidence. So the implications of friendship applies to everyone, whether that person is a believer or not. But what does God think of non-Christian friends? No issue. We have to be careful, of course, as I've stated during this message, during this question time, but in terms of shunning people just because they don't believe, well, I'm not into that, and I don't think God is either. When we look at the life of Jesus in the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke and John, as he walked this earth, he certainly didn't shun anyone. He reached out to people. In fact, he reached out to those that other folks wouldn't, like prostitutes and tax collectors. Think of the woman at the well, how he reached out to her and had conversation with that particular lady at that time. So Jesus certainly was open to reaching out to everyone, and so should we.